everyone, and welcome to the 45th episode of Slime Time, the official Dragon Quest Dragon's Den podcast. This is Plattym3.
And this is Liamland. So the Olympics just wrapped, but can we talk about that opening ceremony?
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. There was some lead up to the fact that there was going to be Dragon Quest music at the opening ceremony, because I think sometime around July 4th, it leaked that some otaku in Japan had heard the Dragon Quest theme coming from the Olympic Stadium. So there was some buzz around that it was going to be something going on. And then the night of the opening ceremony, much of us waited, watching the TV with bated breath, and all of a sudden you just hear it. You just hear those first opening notes, the dun 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 dun, and then there's a little bit of a pause. So that was just a teaser, and then all of a sudden it just, once they start introducing the athletes, starting with Greece, the Dragon Quest theme is the very first theme that they played, which is amazing. And they did a whole montage of other games, including, I was hearing Final Fantasy. I heard Chrono Trigger at one point. Even games like Sonic the Hedgehog made it in there. So you could sort of tell that both Square Enix and Sega had a deal with the Olympics. And there were just lots of different themes. And then at the very, very end of the introduction to the athletes, which took about, I would say it was like 2 hours.
Oh yeah, for all those nations to parade through, it's a long one.
Yeah, it was. I think it might have actually been longer, like two and a half hours or so. Then the closing music was also Dragon Quest, which was amazing. That like they honored the game so much. Was it
playing when the guy was like walking up the stairs to light the fire? Is that?
No, it was like it was at the. I don't think so. I think it was just at the end where they were like, "Welcome." Yeah, they're like, "Welcome athletes." I don't remember exact timing of the flame or not, but Pendy was it was awesome because we were trying to find this feed, because the feed is different between NBC's feed and the one in Japan that I saw.
Yeah, the American NBC one cut to commercial, and when they came, I mean, that's about as American as you can get.
Yeah,
they went to commercial, and then as they come back, the Greek athletes are already walking in. And
did they skip part of the Dragon Quest theme?
I believe so. Yeah, you missed part of it. I mean, you're maybe 5, 10, 15 seconds into it or something, but so you can obviously tell. But no, it's you missed those bars at the beginning. Like you said, they had a beginning and then they paused. But I never saw that.
I gotcha.
I actually, the Greek athletes were already like walking, and I was like, well, I know the music.
Yeah. So the whole thing is available on archive.org. We can find that. We'll link to that to the show notes, courtesy of Slime Time Zone. Mr. Sean Pendergast was able to dig that up, the Japanese feed. So if you haven't seen that and you want to sift through 2.5 hours of intro for the music.
That was 40, and the whole intro was 45 minutes into the whole program. So
we can skip 45 minutes in if you don't want to see a lot of interpretive dance. It's not the special kind of ballet that we talked about on the ballet episode, but there is some of that. All right, so let's get to know our guests.
Yes, they put forth quite a few gold medal performances of themselves.
We've got transition.
There you go. How you like that? I was trying to form that in my head, and it didn't come out perfectly, but
it's good enough.
I'll give myself a 9.4 for that.
Yeah.
We've got returning with us tonight. We've got translator extraordinaire Z6n4. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, and we got someone who you brought in and kickstarted a project and got you going again and helped you out with the game we're going to be talking about tonight. We've got Dominik.
Hi.
Welcome, Dominik.
Thanks. Yeah, it's nice to be here.
So
Z6n4, we talked with you about one pandemic ago, back in December 2019. But if you'd like to chime in on any of these, feel free.
Yeah. We'll get to Dragon Quest Monsters 2, Cobi and Tara's marvelous mysterious key in a minute, but we do want to get to know Dominik a bit better. We'll ask him some of our normal intro questions. If anything's changed for you, Z6, feel free to jump in.
Okay.
So, Dominik, I feel I already know this one, but what's with you? I got your username off the the Discord server that y'all have with this translation that you announced it on. But what's with your username?
Yeah, the username there is just my first name.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah.
How did you come up with that?
It was given by my parents. Yeah, but probably the username that's more relevant is the username I use on the forum, I guess. It's like the H73, at least that's how most English people pronounce it. And that's what you find me in all other places.
Okay.
If you do.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have other lurk around with other usernames? So there you go.
Yeah.
Cool. So how did you originally get into the Dragon Quest series?
The first game I played was Dragon Quest 9, which may sound weird because all of you started like with Dragon Quest 1 or 2, but I started with 9, and I don't remember much, honestly. But I do remember when Joker 2 was announced that I were very hyped for it, and I pre-ordered it, and I played that a lot, and with a friend, and it was just great. So that's probably how I got into Dragon Quest. But since then, not very many games came out in Europe, or did, I don't know. Then like Dragon Quest 11 came out, but I never played it until 3 months ago, I guess. Then I bought it, and it's great. Yeah, so these are the Dragon Quest games I played.
Okay, so out of those, I'm jumping ahead, but maybe I don't even have this in there. What do you consider the best game that you played out of all the ones?
Or probably Dragon Quest 11, because it had just such a long story and so many twists in it that you couldn't predict. And because at the beginning, spoiling a bit here, but at the beginning you just build up your team, and then right in the middle you're just alone again. And that was so much fun. So I guess that was like the best game. Mm-hmm. Like when I think of other games for the Switch, like the Switch had very many very great games, like Super Mario Odyssey, probably the greatest Super Mario game, and I feel like Dragon Quest 11 is the same for the Dragon Quest series.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I've played them all, and I've unapologetically come to the conclusion that in my head, it's not recency bias. It really isn't, but Dragon Quest 11 has it all. Like,
that's amazing. I've never heard that term before.
What, recency bias?
Yeah, I like recency bias. That's awesome.
Well, I love recency bias too, because I just learned about it. It was pretty meta for you. But I mean, Liam and I've talked in the past, like, we love 4 as our favorite classic, and 5's got the good story, and 9's got all the online, or kind of that you could do locally online with people. But no, I just find that sitting back from it all, 11 definitely my favorite too.
And do you have any favorite characters from 11?
I don't know. I feel like the story forced you to like all of them, because at some point you had to play with every single one. When in the first part where I just got new team members, I just played with the 4 you had from the beginning, because I felt bad for them to switch out. But later I did, because you had parts in the story for every character, and you like learned why they are following this hero, and I kind of like all of them, really. Yeah.
Do you have any favorite monsters in the series?
Yeah, for sure. I do like slimes in general. They're like really cool. I mean, everyone does probably.
Yeah.
And
oh yes.
Yeah, and like the slime stack is one of my favorites, and I remember when Joker 2 came out and you pre-ordered it, you got like a little plastic figure of slime stack. I don't know if you had this as well.
That sounds familiar. That seems like a GameStop thing. that I picked up for pre-ordering or something.
If I bought it from GameStop, I'm not sure. But I remember I had this figure a long time on my desk, and so I looked at it every day, and so it probably became my favorite monster that way. And
Nice.
other than slimes, the dragons like Xenlon, I really do like them. And when I played Terry's Wonderland, this was the first two-sized monster I went for. Not Scanlon, but the blue one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so, probably a lot more monsters that are just pretty cool.
You mentioned everybody loves slimes. Yeah. Both my kids are like way into Dragon Quest like me. And actually the game we're going to talk about tonight, I'll talk about that more later too, how that's helped so much. But driving them to school and driving them to camp every morning, they'll usually play, hey, let's play Guess That Dragon Quest person or monster. We used to do this with Pokemon for a long time, and it's gotten to the point where we don't even have to ask the first question, are you talking about a person or a monster? They're always thinking of a monster. And 9 out of 10 times, it's always in the slime family. And you brought up Slime Stack. I swear my older son has fooled me so many times. Like, I'll be like, is it like a normal slime? And he's like, nope. I'm like, okay, does it have a hat? Does it have something on it? Is it just all slime? And he's like, no, it's all slime. And I'll get stumped for a while, and he's like, well, it's a 1 slot. And I'm like, well, how many eyes does it have? And he's like, 6. And I'm like, I don't know any 6-eyed slime monster. What the heck? And I would say at least 3 times this summer, he's gotten me nailed with the slimes. I'm like, the Slime Stack.
No,
Yep. And it doesn't stick. 6 eyes, I can't get that one stuck in my head.
Yeah, you imagine it differently. You don't imagine 3 slimes stacked on top. You imagine 1 slime with too many eyes.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he's perfectly right in what he's saying, but it's not what I'm envisioning. All right. So, out of the Dragon Quest games that you've played, what are your favorite mechanics that you've liked? Either is it job classes, monster collecting, casinos? What are some things across the games that you really enjoy?
The casinos. I mean, in Dragon Quest XI, it's probably the only game that I remember going to the casino, but it was 2 months ago. So I do remember it, but I had a lot of fun doing it. It's better than a normal casino because you actually do win.
Yes.
I just did it like early on in the game, as early as I could, to get the better weapons. And I probably always do this when there's something luck-based. Like, for example, in Octopath Traveler, you can like steal the weapons from some people.
Oh, yes.
And they had like 2% probability. I always reset for that so that I get this, and the same is for the casinos in the games. So those are fun, yeah. You mentioned job classes as well. I don't think I used them. I mean, they were in Dragon Quest IX, right?
Yes.
But I can't remember that I used them. I don't know even if I finished the game. I should probably boot up my old save file and look.
So, Liam, Dragon Quest IX didn't have a casino, right? Isn't that like the only game that doesn't?
No, it didn't.
Really? The only game that doesn't?
Well, I mean, some of the early ones didn't. They first had the casino starting with 4, and then they had some other mini games in some of the earlier ones. I think the first mini game was in the second one, which was Tombola, and then they added some stuff to the remake for 3. Speaking of which, you mentioned Octopath Traveler. Did you see the news from the 35th anniversary that they're coming out with a remake of 3 in 2D HD that's going to kind of emulate that Octopath Traveler style?
I've seen the announcement, but I did not remember. I remember that they announced a sequel to Octopath Traveler. Is that the game? No. That's
going to be separate, but this is stylized like that. So if you like Octopath
I should
Traveler,
probably try that.
Yeah. We're eagerly anticipating the release of that one, and hopefully we'll get it here in the US. But
and in Europe.
Yep. Yeah. Sorry, I meant outside of Japan.
Yeah. Then other mechanics. I like the forging. I did a lot of forging in Dragon Quest XI to get like the best results. I don't know how the forge is called in English.
No, that's right. It's the fun size forge or the
fun size forge. Interesting. Yeah. So I like that mechanic. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, 9 had a lot of alchemy too, but I think 11 with the actual being able to like pick where you hit it and do other stuff. That was pretty cool.
That
it
was
gave
fun,
you more than just throwing everything in a pot. And I guess it depended on how good you were at the Forge. You might have really hated that mechanic that all of a sudden it was a mini game and not just a throw it all in the pot and it works.
Yeah, I remember that I retried a lot of times to get the best result, and I probably wasted too many hours just resetting the game, and it takes an eternity to reload.
Right, because the fun size Forge, they kind of anticipate that you're gonna try and do that, like try to save state it basically, and when you load the game back up, the fun size Forge is like overheating, and you have to wait for it to be normal again so you could use it. But I don't know the timing on that, but I think it was
overheated. It never did.
Yeah, if you restart it, it's like it's kind of like boiling over or whatever.
Did they continue that in the S version?
I wonder if so.
No, I don't know.
I could reset all the time, just like close the game,
just use it right away
again.
Yeah, use it right away. Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Oh, that's awesome.
Maybe that's like with Dragon Quest VIII when they remade it. You didn't have to wait for the pot to work all the time.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe they're just like, oh, okay, all right, that was annoying.
We get it. You're gonna do it anyway. We'll just let you do it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Cool. So have you ever worked on any video game translations before the game we're here to talk about, Dragon Quest Monsters 2?
No, I didn't, and I didn't even know that people did fan translations. So I just came across this, and then I tried to do it myself, but I have never heard of fan translations before.
Well, we're glad you stumbled into it.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so let's get talking about the game and the project that got me interested to get you guys on here. Z6n4, when we last talked to you in December 2019, remind us, where were you with this project?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. I was stuck. I was completely, I hit a dead end and I could not get past it. So this is an old project, and I've been doing these for a little bit. I mean, first one I ever did goes back to Dragon Quest III Remake, and I was kind of laughing when you mentioned the Switch one. It's like, I will play all of them if they would give that treatment to 1 through 6, but like, how many times are they going to remake these games? So here we are again, more remakes that they're not releasing, and I'm just seeing all of them on the 3DS, and this was before 7 was even out. So I start digging into all these games, and what I find out is majority of them use similar encryption frameworks, kinds of things, where as we peel the layers of the onion back, but everyone was a little bit different. So I tackled them in the order that I was interested in them. I looked at this one really early on because it was basically structurally the same as Terry's Wonderland. So like, I looked at this, I want to say in like 2016, maybe even before. Put it off until I finished Joker 3, and I picked it back up. And I just got to this point where we could not figure out how to display more than 48 English characters in a dialogue box on screen. And it just, I guess that limitation makes sense when it comes to Japanese, but when you go from Japanese to English, the number is seriously going to inflate, and that's where we were stuck. A lot of people were hassling me saying, just release it, release a menu translation. We had a complete script translation done because I basically said to the team working on it at the time, it was a very small team, just keep going. Like, we will get through this. There's a lot of work to do here. I'd rather just get all that stuff done, because the technical hurdles are not usually, like, you can overcome all of those, and then you still have, a gigantic script to translate. So let's knock that out. And we did, but in 2019, I don't think we were completely done with that. We were still kind of working on that behind the scenes with the hope that we would overcome that technical hurdle.
So how did you guys overcome it? What did it?
Well, I think most of this credit goes to one person who's not on the call, but so we wrapped the script up, and I was kind of frustrated because we couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, I can't release it like this. There's a lot of QA that would go into it after the fact to, make sure everything lines up, because we were just kind of translating a script dump out to a computer. It's a lot different to experience that in game. So I was just kind of really patient. I was skimming the forums, and I don't know. Occasionally people would hit me up on Discord and be like, "Oh, hey, somebody's working on it. You should reach out to them." And I can't tell you how many times it was a dead end. I started to really just lose faith that somebody was going to surface to help me, and I was operating alone on it at this point. So like, it's really difficult in the coding world, and I'm sure Dominik is familiar with this since he's a developer as well. You usually you can Google a problem and somebody has run into it, but I couldn't exactly Google how to extend the script length output rendering, or whatever you want to call it, in Dragon Quest Monsters 2, because nobody else is tackling this problem. Fairly unique problem. So I get another one of these messages, and I think I saw it on my phone. I was visiting my in-laws. I was like, falling asleep. We ate some giant meal, I'm sure, when I was down there, and I see this on my phone, and I'm like, and this is when I find Dominik's post, and I'm like, holy crap, this guy got exactly to where I got it. Nobody else has done that, and he did it by himself, and it seemed like he just like did it like overnight. Like, I don't know how long you had been working on it at that point, Dominik, but it just like popped up, and I was like, oh my God. So I reached out to him, and there was another guy who had been posting on this thread. By posting, I think he only posted like 1 or 2 times. His username is Coalmines. On Discord, he's Coalmines87, and hopefully he doesn't mind me throwing him out there. But he lives in an area where we couldn't really have voice calls, video chats, any of that stuff. So it was a lot of just different time zones for all of us. So communication was extremely staggered. But he was our guy for the really low level stuff. Because this was the first hurdle. Like, once we actually got in and we started testing, there were more. Kind of like I had run into in Dragon Quest Monsters Joker 3. But some of these were really difficult, and they would cause the game to lock up at various points. And we would just, me and Dom and Gerb and everybody else involved in this project would just plow through the things that we could do. And we'd always hit one of these, and somebody would be like, oh, I ran into this. I'm like, just send it to Coleman. It's like, he's going to figure it out in like 2 seconds. He's way smarter than I am. I don't even understand how he was doing this. I would have loved to take the time to learn from him, but we just, I guess it would have been, we were stuck until about November of 2020 when the 3 of us finally got together, and Dom and Coalmines had kind of everything technical figured out. He had Dom had public repos set up, so he was also starting to target. I saw in the project it was targeting multiple languages, not just English. And I was like, man, if I could just get my script into that and work with these guys, we're going to be where we want to be for this first release. So that's kind of when things, I would say, kicked off around November of 2020 again.
That's awesome. Dominik, what drew you to trying this? Like you said, you just tried it on your own for a while.
Yeah, it's a long story, but I guess we have time for that.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So I said before, I played Joker 2 and I loved it. And I remember years ago, I Googled whether there was a sequel. So I just put in there Dragon Quest Monsters Joker 3. And I found the game in Japanese. Yeah, so I waited, and then about 1 year ago, I just remembered that again. I Googled again, and I found again that it was only released in Japan. But I also found rumors about a seemingly new Dragon Quest game that should feature Eric and Mia. And I don't know if you heard those rumors as well, but there should be like news in the next weekly Jump magazine. So I only had to wait like 5 days, and then I checked again, but the rumors seemed to be incorrect and was just some adverts for Dragon Quest XI's. I don't know if you remember that.
I think the 35th anniversary had an announcement about a game called Dragon Quest Treasures. Is that what it?
No, this would be way before that. This is because you hadn't worked on it. But no, what is it? Was it 2018? They said they were working on the next Monsters game about Eric and Mia.
Yeah, it could be.
That's right, yeah.
It was at the end of 2018, and then at the beginning of 2020, they were like, listen, there's problems, you're not going to hear about it again this year.
Yeah.
And then it took all the way till this year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I found that, and there was nothing that like seemed that they would put out a new Dragon Quest Monsters game for Europe and the US. So I searched more, and then I found the forum with the fan translations. So I found the Joker 3 fan translation and I looked into what I had to do. And the first step was like hack your 3DS. And I wasn't sure if I want to do that, as I haven't hacked any Nintendo console before. The only thing that I did was to install the custom Mario Kart on the Wii, which is awesome. You should try. Yeah, but anyway, I then did hack my 3DS and tried out Joker 3, and I was a bit disappointed that the game didn't feature the 3D effect. And I know many people don't like it, but I do. So I remembered that there was another Dragon Quest Monsters game called Terry's Wonderland, and that had also a fan translation. And then I tried that one, and it had a 3D effect, so I was very happy. And I decided to play it on vacation that year. But I also found that there was another game, this Iru and Lucas Magical Keys game. And I wondered why there was no fan translation for this game. And then there were like 2 or 3 posts in the forum from one person that figured out how to place a very, very low level text in the game, like replacing a single word. But that got me started to think I could maybe do the same thing. And then I read all those posts and tried to get the most out of them. And yeah, then I finally looked into the game files and was able to read the text. And then I tried to replace some of it. And I remember the first time I loaded up the game on my 3DS and there was a different text displayed than the Japanese one. That was really amazing. And then from that point on, I started to write code so I could, more quickly replace the text. And that was basically how it started. And once I had that done, I thought I could give everybody what they wanted, which was a menu translation, like very low-level menus, monster names, skill names, and nothing more. So I decided to do as much as I could. I wrote code to crawl monster name data from different wikis to put into the game, and I clicked into every menu dialogue I found in my first hours of playing this game. And that's when I released version 0.1, and that's when I did my forum post. So that was like 3 to 4 weeks of work, and then I had this little bit done.
Wow. And that's what got Z6n4's attention, I guess.
Correct. And I was very surprised. I remember I was already on vacation when I posted it, and I created an account for the forum like 1 week before. And then I set everything up. I made the GitHub public, and I started writing the forum posts. I made 2 simultaneously, one for the tool and one for the translation. And I then had everything set up, and I was ready to send it out to the world. And I clicked on create thread, and it just told me I wasn't allowed to post links or images. So, because I was new to the forum. So I looked into how I could get this done, because I really wanted to make a good post with images and not just saying, I did it, try it out, because no one would do it.
How long did you have to wait in order for your trial membership to be over?
It's not about time, it's about the number of posts you do. You need to have 5 posts, but I didn't want to make like any spam posts in there. So I looked into messaging an admin on there. But guess it, you can only message someone when you have 5 posts. Yeah, great, I know. So I
just do one word posts, like hi post.
Was this on GBA temp?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. So, but I found a way, and the way was to report yourself, because then you could put in a custom message there that some of the admins will read. And I did exactly this, and then some hours later I got a message from one of the admins, and they said they given me like 5 posts, and that should be enough. So I tried again, but it didn't work. So I messaged them, thanks a lot for your time, but it just didn't work. And then they tried out something else, I don't know, and then I posted it. And it wasn't much. Probably an hour later, I got the first post from Z6n4 on both my threads. And I was like, okay, that's the guy that did the other games. So that was kind of special. And I replied, and yeah, then everything started their way. And yeah,
that's awesome. That's quite a gamble too. If you report yourself, you could have gotten banned.
Yes, but somewhere I read that this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
If you want to message someone. I did not come up with this myself.
That's a clever way around it. Like,
yeah, definitely.
It is, yes.
So, I'm assuming you've both played through this game.
I didn't.
Or at least you haven't? Or have you
No.
done it, but now? No?
I haven't done it, no. But I plan to do it when I go on vacation this year.
Did you have played some of it though, right? Like just through testing process?
Yes. Yeah, so on like my own save file, I played like 4 hours, which are the exact screenshots you can see in the old thread.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in Japanese still, with my phone using Google Translate to like figure out what I have to do. Because at the beginning you have like to deliver a cake or something to some person. So you needed to talk to specific NPCs in the right order. So I really had to know what was going on. And so these 4 hours were mainly spent on Great Lock, and then I got into the first keyword of the desert, and I didn't do anything there. So that's what I played. But of course, during testing, I got save files from other people that completed the game, and I went to every location I could zoom to, and yeah, so I know basically all the places that there are in the game, but I don't know much of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we talked to Z6n4 originally, way back when in 2019, it was mentioned that the Cobi and Tara text was both kind of layered together. So depending on which character you pick, you have some of the text, so there's a lot of repetition there. Did you find that when you're coding as well, and how did you decipher which character you were translating?
Yeah, so there are 2 basic types of text files in the game, and they do have different encodings. So the ones that I figured out initially were the ones for menus, where you have menu text, some dialogues, you have some messages with NPCs, but mainly monster names and some similar things. And the other type is the more complex script type, and this is the only type of file that actually features Cobi and Tara's text. And this is the file type that I figured out much later with the help of Coal Mines. I didn't do it initially. So when I found that out, I believe I already worked with Z6n4. So yeah, I knew that there was text in there for both of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it was like funny, because you had one single line per text box basically, and you for Cobi and Tara text, you had both text in the same line with just a separation byte in there. So that was kind of a special case I had to figure out and put in the software. That was a bit annoying, but wasn't too bad. Yeah.
Cool. Was there a lot of overlaps? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I wish I had you guys find that for me before I had to discover that one on my own. It's like he said, there's script files. So like I would always refer to them as the dialogue files, because that's really where the meat of the content lives. And when you think of a script for a movie or a play or, book, like whatever it is, it's very sequential. You don't, for whatever reason, and I had never actually run into this in a game where the main dialogue was different depending on the main character that you picked, which again, it makes sense because it's a little boy or a little girl's perspective. So, when they're talking to their parents, there will be different dialogue in there. It's not just a swap out for whatever you decide to name your main character. It's completely different context. They'll have different conversations with certain people, but not everybody. When they both go to the weapon shop, it's going to be the same thing. But when they both talk to their dad, it'll be different. So it wasn't like every single line. Like there were like gender neutral blocks, I should say, or character neutral blocks, and then there would be ones where they each had a line. but sometimes they were very lazy, and I don't know if they, like the way they coded this up, they intended certain blocks to be very different, but the differences would be so insignificant. I'm like, why did they even bother for this line? Or they would actually be identical at some point, and it might have just been after the coding was done. Maybe when they originally compiled the game and shipped it, they said they had like accidentally left it as a split block instead of a single block of dialogue, and it ended up being the same line by the time they finished. I have no idea, but I ran into a bunch of those. I knew as soon as I discovered that, I was like, oh my God, QA for this before we roll it out and testing is going to be a nightmare.
Oh, I'm sure.
Just not what you want to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's double the, you can't just go through and try everything once with one character. Everything gets doubled.
Yep.
Oh, man. So how long... I thought it was absolutely hilarious, and I remember I messaged you when you actually released it because you went public with the translation like around 6 or 7 o'clock Eastern time on Thursday, April 1st.
Yes.
And I got the notification from Discord that you had posted in your announcements area, and my first thought was, April Fools.
So why did we do that? So why did we do that? So I've had a couple releases that I felt were in our control, and coincidentally, a lot of the releases wrapped towards the end of the year. So I remember releasing Terry's Wonderland 3D, and it was like, I think it was October timeframe. I think it was. I honestly don't fully remember, but it wasn't special. It wasn't like a special day. Like, it was a special moment because we achieved that. We rolled it out, and it was really cool, and people were excited. But like, it just showed up in October. So when we rolled out the next one, Joker 3 took a while, and there were different points I could have called it done. I remember thinking, wouldn't it be cool if I could ship this out around October? And I reached October, and I was like, there are still large segments of this game that I have not gone through testing on, like some side quest pieces. I had done the whole story at that point, but there was just so much extra stuff I hadn't gotten through. And I was like, you know what? Let's make this one special and roll this out towards Christmas, because people will have time off. Kids, teachers, anybody that actually gets a large amount of time off for the holidays there. Would be able to enjoy it, and I'm like, it just feels like the right time to release it, because anyone who's been waiting for it will actually get time to sink into it. As an adult now, with a gamer that has a busy schedule and a million hobbies and kids and all kinds of stuff, I hate when a game drops on a Monday or a Tuesday, or it doesn't comply to my schedule. They don't know that I could be traveling, who knows. So I figured, let's put it out there on a holiday. So why did we do this? Because I missed the holiday deadline for it, and I knew I had a full script, but I didn't realize how many other problems we were going to run into. And I was not excited for this game in particular. I played it on the Game Boy back in the day, but I didn't have, it's a whole different experience. So I didn't have any definitive memories from it. The first one I did because it was like a rival for Pokemon, and I liked the Dragon Quest world, so it was a cool feeling back then. But I didn't have any fond memories of this game. Once I started playing it, I was like, oh my God, they made this so much bigger. And it was like the open world areas that you I'll call them open world, that you would get into. It was way different from what I remembered with Terry's Wonderland, obviously, which was, floors. I forget what that's called.
Randomly generated dungeons. Yeah. Just going down.
Yeah, I mean, like, the only thing special about that game, looking back on it, is the fact that it was the Dragon Quest world, the monsters, Terry from another game. And it was cool to see them string things together, but it was just like a big random dungeon tournament game. That's all it was. This was a legitimate game. And when I played Joker 3, I remember thinking, wow, this is so cool how in Joker 3 they had like the expansive worlds, right? So like, I didn't know they were going to do that with the remake of this game. And I don't even remember if that's how the original one was, but I do just remember it was like panel by panel, like the original Dragon Quest monsters, where you'd reach the edge of the panel and then the screen would slide over, right? So I think that's what I remembered, and I wasn't expecting this. So once I got in here and I started testing it, I was just like, there's no way I'm going to hit the holiday for this. There's just no way. With 2 characters, there's no way at all. So I got through one, and then I had to do the other one, and I don't want to say I rushed it, but I was like, I literally am at my wit's end here because on the previous translation projects, my jobs weren't as stressful at the time or as busy. My daughter was younger. Things were just easier for me personally. And I had so much less time when we picked this one up. So I was just like all in, like many sleepless nights. My wife was probably getting tired of me. Like, she's like, take a break, right? Like, you need to slow down. And I'm like, no, like, I'm going to finish this. Okay. The more breaks I take, the longer this is going to take. So I would just work on this every day, and I would make sure I would get so many hours into this, and realized as I was nearing the end, the only special time that was coming up was wherever people celebrated it, Easter. And I knew some people had extended weekends. I did not. I knew that, people had longer weekends, and I was like, let's just get it out on Thursday because people have off Friday and Monday potentially, and they'll be able to pull this down tonight and enjoy it over the long weekend. So
that is true. Yeah, it was Easter weekend. You're right.
It was just really coincidental, unfortunate, stupid timing, whatever you want to call it, because no, I did not receive a single like, nobody believed me when I put it out there, and we all talked about this, and I talked about it with Coal Mines and Gerb and Dom, and they're like everybody's in a slightly different part of the world and time zone, so I was like, somebody's gonna believe it. I mean, it's not April Fool's for everybody, but that's kind of the intent there. If we would have finished it in June, then it just would have come out whenever, I'm sure, because there's not a lot of holidays in June that you get long weekends for.
That's pretty awesome. No, I know this prompted me. Let's see, I spent a good chunk of my evening, probably the whole darn thing from like 8 p.m. to midnight on April 2nd, hacking my 3DS. And then a couple weeks later, hacking my son's because he saw me playing this, and really, he's on like during the pandemic, I got him into more gaming, like being able to play certain games on his own. And it really wasn't until what day was it? Speaking of, holiday. Oh, Veterans Day here in the United States, November 11th last year. He had off with his school, but my school was in session. They always did a huge Veterans Day ceremony at our school, and we didn't get off, so I had to take it off to stay home with him. And I had bought the new Pokemon Sun and Moon with the DLC included on the cart, and sat down and sat there and played with him for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. He started getting frustrated, like he wasn't strong enough. So I was like, well, you got to build up levels and whatever. Like, we had played Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pokemon, or Let's Go Pikachu over the summer last year, but it was 2 versus 1 on that since we were playing side by side, and that was easy. But all of a sudden, between the day he got it and spring break, like April last year, he put like 150 hours as a 7-year-old into this. And I mean, he just went so deep into Pokemon and everything. And once he started seeing me play on my 3DS again, he's like, wow, you haven't played on that in a couple of years, Daddy. And I'm like, yeah, well, a new Dragon Quest Monsters game came out. And he remembers vaguely, like 3 years ago, when I played through Terry's Wonderland and Joker 3. But I did that on the PC, so, it was kind of mostly at night when he was in bed anyway. And so he spent a long time over my shoulder watching it for a couple weeks, and then he's like, I want to play too. And I'm like, well, I got another 3DS that you have routinely rejected ever playing on. And I think he may be nearing 80 or 90 hours now on Dragon Quest Monsters 2. He loves it.
That's pretty nuts. I mean, time-wise for me, you asked Dom about the QA, or I call it QA, the testing aspect of it. I think I spent about 200 hours with Cobi, and then I spent a little under 100 with Terra, because at least the second playthrough there wasn't as much dialogue I had to look at. And some of that time, I don't think it was actually a real world 200 to 300 hours, because that was just the in-game clock. The advancements on Citra made this so much easier for me to test this time around, because In the early days of 3DS modding, that it wasn't that good. And I also did not have a good PC good enough to run Citra with everything I needed to do. And the plugins that we used for like the layered file system and things like that on the 3DS, development modding and all that stuff for the 3DS was just further ahead when I worked on the earlier projects. So enough time had lapsed where it was actually much more feasible that I think even Coal Mines too, we did a lot of our work directly out of Citra. So I just had to move my copy, use my 3DS to essentially extract it, move it to PC. And I think I played the entire game on there with an Xbox controller on Citra. So
I used a cheap kind of PS2 analogous one when I did earlier.
Yeah, and I would just overclock it and speed everything up, and had like 60 FPS mods and everything. I definitely spent a little bit of time testing it on the 3DS because there were really strange problems with, and it makes sense, but to me anyways, on the Joker 3 project, where like I modified the font because the original font only had Japanese characters in it and like a handful of English characters that I wasn't going to use. So we ripped that font apart, redid it, and just rebuilt it and used all these compilation tools out there to rebuild a font. And I must have initially fed the wrong command line arguments to this tool when I was doing it, because the file I built was like 4 times the size of the original font, which when I was testing this back then on my new 3DS, that it was fine. But when I was like, somebody complained about it, and I was like, oh, yeah, let me take a look. I happen to have, I don't know why, this is the only console I did it with. I have like every model of the 3DS because it was around for so long. They would update it. So I tried it on the original ones and the XL, and it would crash. The game would crash when you'd get to certain parts because it was loading too many assets, whether that be like a file that I modified that was bigger. The font was bigger, just some of the things I had edited were physically larger on disk. And when they would load into memory on the console, those older consoles didn't have as much memory and the game would crash. So those were always really fun problems to figure out. So when I was done with all the Citra testing, I made sure to go back and run it on my oldest hardware to make sure nothing crazy was happening.
Well, he's been playing on old hardware and he's loving it. And probably all the text that I know I never go through and read, like into the library and everything. My son comes to me every other day with something like, "Daddy, did you read about this monster? It like was born in here and did this and blah 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 blah." So somebody's out there reading all that library data that you guys translated and put in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's always a thought that crosses my mind as I'm like toiling through those things, and I'm like, man, if this was actually me playing this game, I'd probably be ignoring half of this stuff. But here I am making sure every little word is correct, and for that audience, because I know this game could attract a lot of kids, I always try to tone down the writing style, because somebody just pointed this out to me the other day. There are a couple translators that got some kickback, and I guess there was like a transphobic line in a recent release that went out, and like the guy who did it kept the original context of the translation, but people didn't like that because it was within his power to change it and make it more appropriate or less transphobic. And it's like, it's also, you don't really think about it, but it's also within those people's power to do a really bad job and put whatever they want in there. And a couple people have done that with certain games over the years, but make it more inappropriate, fill it with curse words. And it's like, this game was originally targeting, because in those moments you typically forget the rating system, because you're just kind of you're writing like so not everything translates exactly how we would want it to, especially with like the dialects and things that they would do for the localizations coming out of Japan. Like, I'm sure you guys remember it from Dragon Quest IV. Every town was like Russian, German, So like that's been a running thing. So we had I think we did a couple curse words in there. So hopefully he doesn't start using those.
Mom and I do, so it's nothing he's not heard before.
not my fault.
Is the monster breeding? So if you play on two hacked 3DSs, and can you still is that preserved, or you can still do the breeding between two games?
I think all Wi-Fi functionality, as long as you are on the latest firmware, we have not modified anything that would be detected as like a cheat mod. If you run cheats, then you could get in trouble when you connect to the internet. But yeah, anything local, you're completely fine with, because it's local it's local network activity. It doesn't actually touch their servers. It's more of the stuff when you like go to battle online or do things like that. Everything's preserved, but you have to be running. You have to have the game. You have to have the latest game update installed. Your console has to be running on the latest operating system firmware version, so you always have to have that. And I mean that's pretty much all you need.
Yeah, I've done the Wi-Fi tournaments. I actually loved the Wi-Fi in this one, because you could. I mean, first off, there's like it was this and Joker 3 I've been playing recently. But the Wi-Fi, there's only like 200 people in Japan still playing this game on a regular basis. So you get in there and you enter the Wi-Fi tournaments, and no matter what, you're going to finish in like the top 200 weekly.
Yeah, that was a thought too. I was like, I'm excited to get some of these Japanese flags out of the leaderboards, because nothing against Japan. I love Japan, but stop releasing these games. Yeah, let's start releasing these games. People want them. So, hearing Dom's strong German accent, knowing that we have people around the globe playing this game, I anticipated seeing a bunch show up, and they did, and that was a cool feeling too.
Mm-hmm. Now, Liam, I don't know if you're referencing like the Game Boy Color version like this, because in the Game Boy Color version, you could actually breed between games, and that's how this was the only game I think I've ever 100%ed in my life was Dragon Quest Monsters 2 on the Game Boy Color. I got all 312 monsters, but it was because I could have like a Zoma and somebody else that you would need to breed together to make like, Azura Zoma or whoever they named the next highest level one, or Psycho Pizarro or whatever it was back on that one. And if you bred across the connection cable, each of you would get a monster. And order was important in that game. Like whoever you put as the first monster, you should usually get that family back. So like if I threw a dragon in there, and on my other console I threw a plant monster, well, the first game would get back the bred stronger dragon type, whereas the other game would get back a stronger bred plant type. And then I could just trade them and have, so every breeding I did 15, 16 years ago, I would always end up with the same number of monsters back that I would start with, because I would just keep doing this. You can't breed across the Wi-Fi or the local now, but you can definitely battle, you can trade. There's a whole Street Pass functionality where you can then save people that you've encountered on Wi-Fi and then like encounter them again in the Street Pass functionality, even though you didn't like walk past a guy in Japan. But because I met him on Wi-Fi, it's on there.
It's important to point out that, and I forgot about that, the original was in 2 different versions, just like Pokemon Red or Blue was. It's not like that anymore. It's just condensed down. You pick your main characters. So there's no more. I don't get the one of them in this version of the game or that version of the game. The one thing they did do though, are they had introduced a lot of monsters into Terry's Wonderland from the original one. I mean, like tons of games came out since then. So you had all the modern monsters in there, plus a bunch of new ones and new post game stuff they put in there. So. And I thought this was pretty cool too, because Dom has this out there in his repos. This was part of the release. There was a tool that they released that when you beat Dragon Quest Monsters 2 on 3DS, there's a new option in the menu where you could go out to the store and you could pull down this, like, I'll call it an app, but it was really like a utility app that lets you tap into your save from Dragon Quest Monsters Terry's Wonderland, and you can send monsters over to you essentially import them in from that game into this game. And of course, wouldn't be another great Dragon Quest release if the whole tool wasn't in Japanese and you had no idea what you were doing there. We were like, oh my god, we got to translate this too. And that was a whole separate thing that didn't have menu or script files. And I was not really involved much with that. That was more Dom and Coal Mines. That used more of the like 3DS development framework. There's like, I'll call them layout files. They remind me a lot of just HTML markup, web code. And we're gonna have a panel here. We're gonna have some buttons here, and it's a layout file. So it has your layout with the text directly embedded in there. So those guys went through and got all that stuff polished up. Can't really take credit for that one. And that was part of the release as well. And I think there was a second one that he also put out with this one, because Joker 2 on the DS, there was a utility for Terry's Wonderland 3D that you could pull monsters over from Joker 2 to Terry's Wonderland 3D, and then you could import those from Terry's Wonderland 3D to Dragon Quest Monsters 2. So all of those were included with this release. So if you had invested time in those games, you could pull them over.
Awesome.
Yeah, I didn't do that with this one, but I'll talk in a few minutes about the Joker 3 Professional that I've used that on. So anything else you want to talk about with the development of this game? I think we got a pretty good history of where you came from back through 2019, and Dom, you gave us a pretty good rundown. You started that right about when the pandemic hit, didn't you?
A bit later, I think.
A little bit later.
Yeah. I mean, the pandemic started, at least for me, in March, in the mid of March, and then I started to work on it like July, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess it was something good came out of the pandemic year.
Yeah.
Not that we're even free of it now at all. Like, I'm in Florida. We're burning hot here. It's worse than it's ever been in the past year and a half right now. But that's a whole nother story. So, Dominik, anything else you want to say about the development of this game that any hurdles you had to do? Or
I learned so many things. That's crazy. Like all those hacking the binary files that I did at the beginning before I even posted anything. That was completely new for me, but it was actually so much fun, because you discover something new, and then something new works, and then you discover that there is a special case for something, and you have to include that one as well. And this was actually a pain for the menu files. I don't know if I figured it out incorrectly, or if Square Enix put it in incorrectly. But there is one file in there that just has 1 byte off. Like you have a pointer block at the beginning that shows you where in the file each line is. And for that one, it's just off by 1. I have no clue why. And I talked with Z6n4 about that because in the file he showed me, actually he did it incorrectly. He had like 0 in there everywhere. And that was really strange. Yeah, so it was just a great journey for me.
That's great.
We don't need to relive my mistakes, Dom. Come on.
As I said, I'm not sure if it was your mistake. I mean, why should there be that exception?
I think it was a useless file. It looked more like it could have been used in a debug room or something that we never opened. Most of those games do have those. I never unlocked the one for this game.
I have found a debug room actually.
Oh.
During testing. So when we first tried to overcome this dialogue limit, we tried to do it in the text files, in the script files, or however you want to call them, and we changed some like instruction codes, and when you put in like 0 or 1, I'm not sure, some demo sequence starts, and you just see the camera zooming in on Cobi, and then Cobi does some animations, and there's like a demo message. So we found that one, but that doesn't use the file, so I don't have any clue why that is there.
So I'll move on to another game. I kind of had chatted a little bit with Z6n4 about this, but round about the time that your game was coming out, someone had picked up Joker 3 Professional, and just recently, I want to say May or June of this year, has put out Joker 3 Professional, and it has, I think it's like 95% your work, right, Z6?
I don't know the exact number.
Yeah, but like you had translated, they even said that the professional part was mostly translated when they found that, and
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, so I haven't played that. Now that got released on the Den, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now my question for you, and this has been a gripe of mine, is did they leave all of those placeholders there? Like they have like angle brackets and then they'd put text inside of the angle brackets and it was like machine translated work?
I actually haven't found any of that in the game. I think that was there in their early May release, but
okay.
I think that when I finally got around to it, early June, there was another release out, and they said something like they were down to 12 lines in the entire game of that. But they left that in there for the lines that they hadn't done yet. And honestly, I'm on the final boss right now, and I never have run into one of those lines.
Cool. So somebody actually got it over the finish line. I mean, that was like my biggest thing is, look, I'm all for iterative development and releases, but in the gaming community, it's a little different than in the software community. I think in the software community, people are willing to deal with that because you usually get like a tool or something that does something for you. So it's like, hey, it will be here. We promise you these 10 things will be here, but instead of making you wait 2 years for those 10 things to show up, like here it is now, and 2 or 3 of those things are available, and people are content with that. I think and I mean, I agree, it doesn't work as well with games because you wait so long as it is, 5 years for these AAA titles to come out and they release them, and then they're missing, a third of what they promised, or they don't perform well, or, I didn't play Cyberpunk. I wasn't interested in that, but that's a really good example is like, or No Man's Sky. That's another game that got overhyped.
Oh, yeah.
It goes, it's not even that it went through development hell, but where it is now is like probably closer to what they had envisioned, but they released, well, it's called a beta version of it. Now, we're not building the full game, we're doing the translation. So that's where I'm like, you may as well just release it when it's done. I know people want to play it, but like, I don't know. There's a team working on the Great Ace Attorney, and I think the guy heading that up was called Uwabami. He did that right. I think he would release it by chapter. For the impatient people, yeah, that sucks because they're going to finish a chapter, translate that in like 6 months, but then they're going to play through that in a couple hours, and then they're going to wait. So it just like that made more sense. I don't really think we could have personally, I don't think there were good divides in this game to break it up by, I'll call it chapter or, major event. We would have probably had to do it by world. Like I didn't want to do that. So I was not an initial fan of the way those guys just picked up the polished work that we put out that we spent a ton of time on and like quick machine translated it and put it out there as a V1. And they're like, here you go, everybody. I was like, man, if that's what everybody wanted, I would have just released the not so tested version of the script I had because I didn't test it. And that's a huge thing for me is I can go through and translate the dumped script with the involved team. And we had a very dedicated translator on every one of these projects where, we get it out of Japanese, we fit it in to make sure whoever's speaking, it's the same kind of personality, it's written the same way. There's a lot that goes into it. And it's really hard to do that again when you don't see it in game. So I'm very hesitant to release stuff in that state. And they were kind of doing that with our work. So it bothered me in the beginning, but like at the end of the day, if somebody wants to get that over the finish line, I don't care. I'm happy they did it, and I'm happy that it could help.
I remember them. I saw your post when they first started doing it, and you were like, at least credit the original team that you're using a lot of our work for. And no, that's completely appropriate because, like I said, I don't know what percentage it was, but all the initial work there. I think what they did was initially just take your Joker 3 and dump it into Professional, and then squeeze out whatever else they could.
Yeah,
but. My goodness, I tell you what, the Professional part of that game, its post game is easily as long as, or I guess it's post game because Joker 3 had a post game all of its own, and the Professional content is pretty much as long as the post game that was in Terry's Wonderland or that was in this one, Dragon Quest Monster 2. So it's quite a bit of other stuff. I mean, I played this game, I want to say 3 years ago. Yeah. 3 summers ago, actually, and like I remembered almost all of it. And they have all these options. The Professional version has these options where you can just skip ahead. Like you can turn and talk to your companion little monster guy and just be like, he's like, do you want to just skip to the next story boss? And you can just do that because it's got built in kind of those same features that you mentioned with to be able to import monsters from other games. And I think, it came out, a year in Japan after the other one. So I think you could just start that game up, import your monsters from Joker 3, hit a few buttons, and just be on the professional content in a matter of hours, just plowing through it.
Now that you're reviving this whole, I haven't thought about this in a bit, and it's just interesting. I'm reading through the Dragon's Den post right now, and I don't even understand what's going on here. So the page number 1, they said that it's done, it's released, but there's a little bit on here that says update May 29th. The translation is replaced with leaked pro text from original translation group. I'm
that's sort of like a credit.
Yeah, I'm reading this for the first time, and I'm like, well, what do you mean, like, leaked? Like, how would anybody? There's no way. I could actually go see who got that right now. Now I have to. Well, I'll look sometime today. I'm curious.
Did your translator back then actually do the pro content?
Yeah. So I don't necessarily think it was leaked. So we had a guy who found somebody else and worked closely with her. Now her translation was very crude, in my opinion. She got it done, but there were pieces that were mistranslated, like whole segments of the game. So I had to play through them. I had to machine translate some of those aspects on the fly, look back, completely rewrite it, work with them. We had some guys on the team that were pretty good with the writing part. So it just redoing a lot of it as we kind of went along. Like the guy that we worked with on Dragon Quest Monsters 2, Gerb, he does a fantastic job, and he's been involved in many translation projects, including Rocket Slime, which you said was show number 3. He's been involved in a lot of different projects, and I did not have to rewrite his stuff the way I had to rewrite that translator's work. We would reword pieces, we would edit pieces is a better way to describe that process. I mean, what was there to me on Dragon Quest Monsters Joker 3 that I had to work with from our translator was like very literal, very rigid, not colorful at all, next to no personality. Like, I pick up book, I read book gives me stats. I'm like, okay, like I'm not going to release that, clearly. So that same person, when Pro came out, because all Pro was just, it should have just been an update, in my opinion. It shouldn't have been a whole new game like they always do.
These days it would have probably been a DLC add-on, like on the Switch.
Yeah, it absolutely
add-on next chapter,
just like Pokemon, and it should have just been. It should have been all brand new content and any script fixes, but instead it was a whole game packaged up, and I had to write tools to like take the old script that we built. I'm saying that we built because you can get, this is where you actually, one of the teams got in trouble with Dragon Quest VII because they were trying to line up Square Enix's Dragon Quest VII script from PlayStation with the new one, and you're not allowed to do that. You're allowed to line your own up, so I can say that. That's our IP and our work. And that's essentially what we did, was we imported our script where it lined up into Pro, and then we just had to run it through our tool to say, okay, so what's new here? And there were like whole new files, new dialogue sequences, new menu files, because there were new aspects of the game. And we did a decent amount of that work. I don't know if we finished all of it, but we kept the script out there in a locked down public repo, so whoever had permission to work on it could get to it and kind of like iteratively contribute to it as they found time. So whoever still has access to that would be the one who quote unquote leaked it. Now, if it's the guy I'm thinking of, he was fairly involved, and I would not call that a leak, but I would certainly say, like, give some credit where credit's due.
Yeah, I will say the quality of the translation of all the Pro stuff, because it's a lot. I mean, it's another 20 hours easily. It's a whole new world. It goes back to it. Gosh, like everybody from Joker 1 and 2 show up. Spoiler alert for everybody. I don't remember much about Joker 1 and 2, every NPC, but yeah, there's a lot of them that pop up after the credits of Joker 3, and once you hit the professional content, and it read very well. So I could see where, probably your guys' work. They didn't just whip out a machine translation and then spice it up in 1 month time.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Change on the 29th, their change log, change base translation to leaked pro text from original group. And anyways, I guess why I even went down that whole rabbit hole, not to like extend our conversation forever here. It's just funny now reading through it. The reasons behind it, right? They're like, that's definitely interesting, but I have questions about how polished it is. I'll see what the DQ Translations Discord has to say about it. Apparently, there was some sort of disagreement between the translator and the Discord guys. Like, this is all news to me. I'll tell you what really happened with the project. Other things came up. I only have so much time. It's not like we're paid to do any of this, so it's truly a passion project. And I just felt like the ship had sailed on this one for me. Like, a lot of the hype died down because a lot of people already played Joker 3. I know there's a lot of cool stuff in it, but like, you could also probably agree that if you played Joker 3, then you got majority of it, right? Like,
oh yeah,
you still got something. Now, if we had never done Joker 3, I would have felt so much more compelled to finish pro. And it's unfortunate for like the community because people still want Joker 2 pro. And there's a group that like kind of did that, but then stopped. There's tools out there. I mean, people have written all kinds of things that have been released to dig through these files. So it makes sense that somebody would do the same thing we did and like just finish the little DLC piece. That is like a significantly less amount of work than it would have been to do the whole game from the ground up. But yeah, definitely interesting.
I told Liam he's been playing his way through the games, all the Monsters games for a while now, and he said something about Joker. And he's like, well, I want to play Joker 1 before I get to, or Joker 3 before I play Joker 3 professional. I was like, no, don't worry about it. You don't need to.
Yeah.
Joker 3, it's the same game with a DLC extra thing at the end. You play the professional, you'll have the 3 experience anyway.
And that's kind of where I landed with it. So like, I guess I'm glad that they went through and finished it. I don't know. It's that is a huge pet peeve of mine, is don't take credit for other people's hard work. So I am really curious how much of what we did actually was moved over there. But again, if it was any of the guys that I know were involved on here, like Helix was involved, or Teddy is what he's now called on Discord. I think another guy was where is he in here? Erdrick, maybe Ryushin on here.
Yeah, Erdrick the hero. He's been on the we've chatted with him for years.
And Ryushin, he's on here as well. Probably one of those guys. I forget because they all have different names on the actual Discord itself. Gerb was actually involved on this one as well, getting that over the finish line. And like, that's so when you say leaked, that in my opinion it's not my work, because I put a lot of time into those files, but so did Gerb, and so did Teddy. He put a little bit in, and so did either Erdrick or Ryushin. On here their name is Fail Snail, so I forget who that was, but that's the collective of people that, like, I can even look at the work log on here, probably going back before 2017, but the latest script updates to that were in 2019 that I can see, and it was like pretty much done, and they probably just wanted to get it out there. I just personally didn't want to go through. There was beyond the script, there's a lot of I'll call them assets, like pictures, things of that nature, fonts that need to be edited, and like, you know, whenever there's like a congratulations pop up or one of those screens, or even in battle, like the graphics that would pop up, they'll pop up in Japanese. So it's not just translating text, but you're editing an image, and you have to make sure that it looks good, it fits in there, and you're preserving the initial style they went with. It's just a huge.
I'll tell you what, that's not perfect in the game. No, there's even like, for whatever the R button does when you're in certain worlds or whatever, or hitting X or something, that's still in, and I can tell those are image files up in the corner, and those are not translated. So yeah, probably some between the original and the professional, whatever didn't match up correctly. It doesn't look like anybody went through and did any image editing.
And I mean, that's something that we did a ton of. Yeah, it's again, we go through, we test, and we like to release these as polished as we can. But if everybody's playing it and enjoying it, then honestly, what do I care?
So, well, thank you, because I'm sure your team, like I said, did the bulk of this translation. There was no way, like, well, of course, they even now say it was from leaked stuff. So they're
thanks for taking that
leaks. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super curious. I'm definitely going to ask these guys, like, who did it, just because I want to know. I'm curious.
Just for your own curiosity.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll ask you guys. This is something we asked you 2 years ago. Would you ever do another project?
Yes.
Dominik, you too. You would.
I
Dominik,
would,
what do you say?
of course, yes. I had so much fun. I met so many people. I mean, I texted with many people, and I learned so much again. I said it before, I learned so much, and I would absolutely do it again if there's a game I'm interested in, and a game that will never have an official translation, because I don't want to do work that's later done by Square Enix themselves.
You don't want to be the next Geofront?
No.
Although I guess that's paying off for them at this point now.
I would certainly do it. Like it just feels a lot like my development career. You know, you get your first job, you don't know how it's going to go. Maybe you think you're great, maybe you don't, and then you find out that you could have done things better. But you usually leave that with 1 or 2 positive experiences. A lot of coworkers you didn't enjoy, things of that nature. And as I've been through multiple of these projects, for me, it's like more people in my back pocket, and I would hope that I'm the same for them. So like maybe Dominik will have another project he's interested in. He could reach out to me, and I would say no, and that's okay because I'm not interested in that one. But vice versa, you never know when the stars will align. And I think that's what's tough about the translator community is that there aren't that many of us that are doing this kind of stuff. So it's like you almost just like expect if let's say there was like, I don't know, like a Yakuza game that came out that didn't make it here. Okay, like I wouldn't expect, just because I worked with Teddy or Dom or Gerb or any of these guys that they would help me there. But like I probably have some bit of an expectation that like I would reach out to them again if Dragon Quest Treasures doesn't get translated and we wanted to do something about it because we worked on this one.
So what do you guys all feel about Dragon Quest music?
Like you mean, so you made a comment at one point to me about theater rhythm. Is that what you're alluding to here?
That's definitely what I'm alluding to.
So I love music in general. I love game music, and since it's evolved from its 8/16-bit eras, like it's turned into real music. I mean, there's symphonic music and just whole scores that are composed and a lot of thoughts put into them. So I love it. I loved Final Fantasy Theater Rhythm. That got localized. I'm not as surprised. And then, of course, this did not. So once we started talking about it, I pulled it down and I was like, yeah, could I unpack all of this and figure it out? I think the problem with that game is going to be there's a lot that's done in those asset files. Like it's so image heavy. And then there's like a lot of text, but to that point that Dom made earlier about the bytes in the binary files where you see things and you're like, oh, that's a Cobi speech, or that's a Terra speech, or that's just a general speech. There's other stuff in there that like changes text colors. So there were original highlight control codes we found that would make text pink. They never used that in the initial Japanese release. They only ever used like yellow or blue, but I saw that stuff and I'm like, well, they're here, it's part of the framework, like I'm gonna use it for skills that were just white text in the past and try to add a little bit more context here for people. There are so many of those things in Theater Rhythm. There's so many things that would be considered a control code, or I don't know. I dug through it initially and I was looking at it right after releasing this and I was like, you know what, brain, just slow down for a minute. So I haven't dug too much further into that. I've been enjoying my hiatus for now.
Oh, it's okay. I will say I rolled credits on this game and finished up all the at least the one board they had of, there's 5 or 6 songs, or some of them have 7 per game, going 1 through 10, and I think you get up to 10,000 points at one point, and suddenly you're in a battle with the Dragon Lord. And I know there's more, but not understanding the Japanese, I was happy to roll credits after about 8 or 10 hours, and
yeah,
I played a lot of the Pachisi. They've got a lot of boards on there. I think I made it to like the 12th or 13th, and every time you unlock one, you can see like 2 ahead, and they never ended from where I got to. So there's probably quite a few on there, and I can see where all those assets are image files. Yeah, a lot of them. So, well, no rush, no pressure. I already wrote credits on it, so, you know.
I really hope I don't have to do the Dragon Quest III remake. I don't think I will, but like that one already has a translated script. I can't imagine much is going to change about that story-wise other than the visuals for Switch.
Well, I mean, I think what we gathered from the Dragon Quest 35th anniversary is all that stuff is supposed to come out worldwide. Dragon Quest 3, Dragon Quest Treasures, all of those seem to everything that was in the English portion of the show, except for, you know, the dick move of, hey, look, Dragon Quest X, version 6, not intended for worldwide release.
If you're listening, Square Enix, I would love to help you translate those.
You know, except for that one dick move, the 35th anniversary special at least promised quite a lot coming out worldwide in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they'll live up to that. I honestly think they've been a lot better about it. I don't understand why they go through these periods, but even going back to when they were Enix, we got 1 through 4, and, you know, did we even deserve them back then? 4 came out at the end of the NES's lifespan, and I remember my brother picking it up when I was a child, and, like, looking back on that, the Super Nintendo was already out. Like, people probably were not going to be that interested in it, you know, like from a general consumer standpoint. And they were competing with Square, and this is when Square started to release just phenomenal games. And I distinctly remembered seeing a Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior 5 screenshot in a Nintendo Power, and it was like coming next article, and then that was it. Like we got news about it, but like that never happened. And then 6 came out, and then they remade 3 and 1 and 2, and I'm like, man. So like we just, for whatever reason, they were just like, yeah, we're not doing any of these on the Super Nintendo. And we still kind of got that because it hit the PlayStation. They remade 4. They remade Monsters 1 and 2, which people are still asking for. But
I've been looking into that one recently too. I've had people asking me about that one.
Yeah, I actually at least have an open line of communication with the guy that worked on it. I don't really know if he's progressing on it, but it was weird because then we finally got 7, then we got 8, then we got 9.
7 came out. We've looked this up too. We talked about this years ago. 7 came out like I want to say a year after the PS2 was out. So talk about late in life. And then we all joke that 7 had the advertisement like Dragon Quest 4 for PS1 is still coming.
It probably made sense for them because they still hadn't merged at this point, but like Final Fantasy VII, for whatever reason, not my favorite one, but everybody, it's so nostalgic. It was the first 3D one, and it just made a huge impression. And maybe they were thinking, we could get some dumb kids or some people that just think, oh, here's another competing game, the 7th one. I bet that's good too. Like, I feel like that's what had to be going through their heads because they weren't in the States for almost 10 years.
Oh yeah.
And Enix still had its presence here with some other games, but it was just that one resurfaced, and then they finally rebranded it with Dragon Quest VIII on PS2. It was Square Enix. They bundled a Final Fantasy XII demo with it, and then it was like, once that happened, I'm like, okay, they're here to stay. But no, we got the whole drought on 3DS. So it's like I feel like it comes in waves, and I don't know why. So I'm hoping anything hitting the Switch or this current gen, they're gonna not skip out on. I will say, it's just something that drove me nuts. And Dom said how much he enjoyed playing Dragon Quest XI. I love 11. I love it, but I don't like the definitive release at all. I didn't even bother playing it because I couldn't believe that they took the original game that was released on only PS4 in Japan and then PS4 and PC in the States that had beautiful visuals, up to 4K rendering, like really, really good looking everything, models, backgrounds, environments, monsters, models, just everything. And it was like fully ready, to be rendered in 4K and look great. And then they were like, well, obviously we can't do that on the Switch, so we're going to build S. Then they took that definitive edition and they're like, oh, we added all this stuff to it. We added all like side stories. And I was talking to a guy I worked with about certain pieces, and I was like, no, that does not ring a bell at all. And it sounds like they added a lot of content, but they rolled it out then to Xbox, which it had never been on, PlayStation again and PC again, and now that's the only version that you can get. The old version isn't even on the stores because who doesn't want the definitive edition? Well, the definitive edition uses Switch assets, so like everything is lower resolution and looks worse. And I'm like, why would you do that? How is that definitive?
It'd be like throwing the Dragon Quest 8 3DS version back on the PS4 or something.
Yeah, like it just, to me, it felt like the laziest thing in the world. Like, I know you guys added some new stuff in here, and maybe you'd actually have to put some work in here. But everybody argued it. Whenever I talked to any DQ fans about it, they'd be like, yeah, but they had to actually like put work into that because that was built on the Switch engine. They had to port that over. And I'm like, what idiot made that call? Like, why not just take your new script pieces and put them into whatever version you had released for PC and PS4 and expand on those? So I refuse to play that version for that reason.
It's funny because I think tomorrow I'm going to get my Dragon Quest 11S version back for the first time in almost 2 years. When it came out, I started playing it, and this was right when we started our podcast. Liam, remember I would just be sitting playing in the casino while you were chatting on the podcast.
I do remember that.
Yep. And I got like 25 hours in, and I only played in the Pixel version. Because I was like, yeah, I already played this just a year ago. And like you said, it's all going to be lower assets anyway, so let me just go even lower. I'll just play the 2D version of it. And after about a month, I burned out pretty hard. I was like, man, I've already put 100 hours into this game within a calendar year. I need to take a break. And I handed it to a buddy at work, and he's had it for 2 years. I think he's made it like 20 hours into it. So I said something this summer, and he's like, I'm done. I gave up. I was like, all right. So he's finally bringing it back to work tomorrow. We'll see where I was if I continue. But no, that's a valid complaint. I mean, people have been complaining about that for a couple of years now, that you lost stuff. The S version, what is it? It doesn't have the archery thing anymore, and
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they took that out. But I think other than that, it's just the graphics difference.
Definitely weird, because their trend is they love to remake games. Like, again, this is going to be the third. Well, this will actually be the fourth version of Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest 3 that came out, because you've got NES, Game Boy, Super Nintendo. I guess if you count the mobile ones too, that would be the fourth version, which they kind of ported to Switch. So this would actually be the fifth version of Dragon Quest 3. Every single time they've had some either expansion on the story, like when they added all the post-game stuff to the Game Boy version, or better visuals. So that's where I was like, it was just funny that that's what they always do. And then they're like, definitive version, actually kind of a demake. Here you go.
Yeah, that's one of my common complaints, that the majority of the 3 remakes up until the 2D HD have been based on the Super Famicom version mobile ports, which took out Pachisi tracks, and more importantly, animated monster sprites in battle. So you've got this game, Dragon Quest 3, running on the Switch that has static image monsters, and maybe they upped the visuals.
Do they even come at you like they do in Caravan Heart?
I don't even think so. Yeah, even that Caravan Heart's that's super lazy. They just zoom the monster in and leave the background static. But the and that's a game from what year did that come out? 1996 or something like that. It was some point in the mid 90s that they animated the monster sprites in battle.
In Dragon Quest 6, yeah.
In Dragon Quest 6, and then
here we are 25 years later playing on the Switch without that.
Without that, yeah, exactly. That is a huge step back, and it started with Dragon Quest 6. That was the first game to do it, but then when the Dragon Quest 3 remake for Super Famicom came out, that they animated all the monsters. And then the mobile port comes out, which is every subsequent version is basically based on that. The mobile port has the Super Famicom graphics, or some variation of it, and then static monsters. And so all of the mobile versions that came out subsequent after that were like that. And so in my opinion, the definitive edition, until 2D HD comes out, the definitive edition of this game is still the Super Famicom version from the 90s.
Well, we have run the gamut from some of the last 3DS games to the newest game, and all the way back to Dragon Quest 3 now. So I think we've come full circle. Dominik, thanks so much for being on here. Anything else you wanted to add today?
No, but thanks for inviting me. Even though I didn't say much, I enjoyed it, and I'm happy I accepted your invitation.
No, thanks for going into the story about how you got into this, because that's all we want to hear a lot of. I mean, we've had this is our 4th episode on translations, so it always fascinates us because this is definitely something we can't do, haven't learned to do.
And thank you guys so much for all the hard work that you put into this and bringing these games that otherwise so many fans would not have had the chance to play in their native language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I said, my kids have watched me play Dragon Quest games before, and I want to say like their biggest involvement ever was watching me like try 10 times and finally beat the final boss of Slime Mori Mori 3 about a year and a half ago on the computer. But just, you know, they've never been super interested in actually playing the games. And now with my oldest sitting down and putting nearly 100 hours into this, and he's beaten the entire post game of Dragon Quest Monsters 2. And every week he evolves he breeds some new 4-slot monster that I've never even seen before. And he's just so excited about doing this. Pokemon Sword and Shield has been put to the side, thank God, after 150 hours. And this is like what he plays. His big reward this summer was I put a charging cable in his room for his 3DS so that he could play this. And every now and then he's played it so long, I find him sitting in the corner of his room, like plugged in and keep going. So thank you for that too.
Yeah, that's so great to hear. Honestly, reading all those messages, even now, months after our release, saying like, oh, thank you so much. I just found out you did a translation. That's so great. And I have never imagined when I started it that we would actually finish it at some point, or that we fused together to finish it. And yeah, that's just great to hear that it makes so many people happy.
Thank you. And Z6n4, thank you for all the stuff that you've done, maybe up to including the leaked part of Joker 3 Pro. Still giving even when you didn't know you were.
Yeah, inadvertently completing that translation. I was going to say, fun fact, I think, Liam, you said you enjoyed the Super Famicom version of Dragon Quest 3. That's where my whole translation journey began, with some of the like old people like Kojiro, Demarsman, people like that. That was my first one. So
awesome.
Been doing it for this long, probably won't stop anytime soon, but just because I'm not doesn't mean I'm done. It just means I'm taking a break because people get tired.
Oh, well-deserved break. Yeah. Take a couple of years off. We'll see you when and hey, Slime Mori Mori 1 still hasn't been translated. Don't know what you know about GBA stuff, but you know,
not a
lot. We'll hit Tiger Mask up when he finishes Tornado 3.
Nice.
That'll be his second completed GBA game, so you know, one more. Why not?
Yeah, we should just compile a list of all the ones that haven't been translated yet, and just, you know, here you go, folks. Have at them.
and hope it never grows, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
I know we have 12 on the horizon with that beautiful logo. That's all we got to see.
It's gonna be dark, man. It's gonna be dark.
It seems like it.
It's going to be different, but the same. Different.
And you know what? And whatever that is, it's going to define the genre for the next 10 to 20 years. Whatever that means.
We will see.
we did get some news that they extended Dragon Quest X's like the server the life of it. The life of the server for like 30 years.
Oh god.
You kept talking about it canceling after 10 years, and I was like, yeah, it seems to be going as good now as it was years ago.
I don't know that they're going to be like continuing to do.
May not pump out new stuff.
Yeah, they're probably not going to be doing like new events and stuff like that, but like, or new content for like 30 years, but like, but at least
Final Fantasy 11 is still running.
Yeah, but I mean, like, all right, so 30 years from now, it's like 2051. Are we still going to be playing on the same like Wii graphics?
By then there'll be like AI upscaling.
Yeah.
Your PS8 will just do it automatically.
Right. Maybe it'll be VR at that point.
Oh man.
But.
All right. Well, that's it for this episode of Slime Time. Thank you again, Dominik. Thank you again, Z6n4, for joining us tonight to talk about all your awesome work on these translations.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, absolutely no problem at all. And again, I want to give a shout out to the other team members that were not here, Gerb and Coal Mines, would not have been possible without either of them, without Dominik. They really helped get it, whether we had a complete script or not, which that was mostly Gerb, would not have been possible without any of them.
Awesome. Thank you guys too then. As always, yes. Well, you might have noticed that we've mentioned people who aren't here tonight. We've mentioned people who are here tonight. Games that are coming out in the future, games that in the past. But one thing we haven't mentioned is Patreon. The only time we ever say Patreon on our podcast is when we say we don't use it. We're just all longtime fans here that want to speak about the game series we love so much. If you do have any money, though, that you would like to donate, consider sliding on over to the Dragon's Den at www.woodus.com/den. You can click on support this site. Woodus has owned and maintained the Dragon's Den fan site for over 20 years now. I'm sure he'd appreciate any donation. He's got a bright new Amazon affiliate link right on the main page now. Used to just be that you could buy some Dragon Quest things like the latest games or the books or something like that through his site, his Amazon affiliate links, and he'd get a few pennies. But now you can buy anything through Amazon and he'll get a few pennies. So, got a new $1,000 refrigerator, maybe Woodus will get $1 of that. And it doesn't even cost you anything.
And the affiliate links can actually be found on the Den's forum now. So at the top of the forum, you should see a link for that if you're interested in checking that out. To advertise with us, reach out to us at slimetimepodcast@gmail.com. If you have any questions or concerns, you can find us on Twitter or Instagram at DQ_Slimetime.
Yeah, speaking of the Dragon's Den, consider joining on some discussions over there on the forums. You can find it from the main page or just go directly there at www.woodus.com/forums. I'm still there, crazily posting about translations like these and other topics that come up, whether it's Dragon Quest or just general gaming.
Or come hang out with us and tons of other rabid Dragon Quest fans on the Dragon's Den Discord server.
Or, Z6n4 has a Dragon Quest translation server. If you are playing either this game or like Dragon Quest Joker 3 Pro or going back to Terry's Wonderland or the original Joker 3 and you've got questions, it is a great place to find people that will help. There are people that have compiled Google Sheets documents on all the breeding patterns and all the stuff and walkthroughs and everything. You'll find well more there than you will at Game FAQs. So we'll have to put the link to your server in there too, Z6n4.
Yeah, I would appreciate that.
Will do. And of course, we'd like to thank everyone that made this podcast possible, like Brian, aka Woodus, for his support of the series and this podcast, and for keeping the Dragon's Den's lights on for decades.
Thanks to Amanda Lepre and the Descendants of Erdrick for allowing us to use their music for our podcast. Descendants of Erdrick is a video game tribute band from Austin, Texas. Check them out and their most recent album, Advent, at www.descendantsoferdrick.com or on Twitter at @doferdrick. And check out Amanda Lepre streaming on Twitch.
As always, our thanks to Dwayne Bullock, our wonderful graphic artist, Dragon Quest fan, for making the awesome artwork cover for this podcast. Dwayne was on the original iteration of Slime Time 8, 9, 10 years ago, and he's been on many of our episodes. You can check out more of his work at Dwayne Art on Instagram or on his website, DwayneBullockArt.bigcartel.com.
And if you're looking for more Dragon Quest Slime Time, check out our earlier episodes on Dragon's Den, Anchor FM, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and more.
Bye, everyone.
Dragon Quest Slime Time, sliming off.